That's true. And, during my congressional testimony in 2012, after the Sikh temple shooting, I recommended a number of things.
That was in California?
That was up in Wisconsin, at Oak Creek, Wisconsin. There were 6 people killed at a Sikh temple.
Yeah, what was the source of that? Who were the murderers?
White supremacists mistook the Sikh temple as a mosque and went in there and killed people because he thought they were Muslims, and they weren't. They were Hindus. But anyway, I mentioned...
Well, no Muslim shall appear and approach the country, the borders. What the heck are we doing?
Yeah.
If that isn't prejudice outright, that's not free speech. That's downright violent talk.
Yeah, and there's been more violence against Muslims by white supremacists and others who have yet been identified. There have been Muslims attacking whites. I mean, there's been...
Has that been exposed enough in your mind,
No.
Daryl?
In fact, when we went through a series of mosque arsons in 2014, there was not a peep from the FBI or Homeland Security about this increase in mosques being burned across the country. The fact that we've got armed militia groups conducting protests, trying to intimidate Muslims. The fact that they perpetrate these lies about how Sharia laws being, implemented throughout the country or trying to be, these things are just ludicrous, but yet the very victims of these crimes are Muslims, and we think that they're the threat.
I mean, that hits you right here. That we could have prevented this? Are you saying, Congressman, you could have prevented Charlottesville? Well, the night before, Friday night, when they assembled on the campus of the University of Virginia, not only did they have the torches, but many of them had weapons. Now, how can the president equalize this stuff? Say, hey, they're nice guys on both sides. I mean, that floored me when he did that.
Yeah, and
what was your response?
I couldn't believe some of the things he said, to sit there and accuse, both the left and the right as being equally responsible, I think is reckless and an outright lie. In the past, we have seen a lot of agitators at the, KKK rallies and stuff from the far left.
Definitely.
They engage in property destruction. They have disrespect to law enforcement. But to sit there and say that they rank up there with the white supremacist threat is just ludicrous. I mean, white supremacists are the ones that kill people. They're the most lethal threat that we have here in the country.
But we do have some extreme left-wing groups.
Yes.
And they have used violence at times. And not only to protect themselves, they've done it to incite almost, to incite. But what I have recognized over the past 5 or 6 years is the amount of right-wing groups that have brought hell to bear on police officers. Very seldom do we talk about that either.
Yep.
Very seldom do we talk about that. So there are folks out there. There are folks out there who wish harm not only to the government, but the representatives of the government itself, police officers. Most of the time, they're outgunned in these kinds of situations.
Yep.
So everybody says, let everybody carry, and it depends on which state you live in. And by the way, you brought this out in your report of 2009.
So I did.
The amount of artillery that was out there by many of these groups.
One important statistic that I brought up in my congressional testimony was I looked at all 230-something terrorism cases against Muslims here in the United States up until from 9/11, 2001, all the way up to 2012 when I gave my testimony.
Right.
Okay, and I looked at all the court documents, and I compiled all the weaponry that these 230-some-odd Muslim terrorist suspects had amassed.
Yes.
And would you know that one militia member who was actually acquitted up in Michigan had more firepower in his basement than all 230-something Muslim terrorists combined? And it wasn't even close. It wasn't even a close.
Was that put out in a report?
I put it in my congressional testimony, and Dick Durbin actually was stunned with that very fact.
Did you get me that report? Could
Sure.
you get me that? I didn't see that report. That slipped by me. I must apologize.
Most of the terrorism charges against Muslim Americans are for providing material support to terrorists, whether it's money, food, clothing.
And that's horrible enough. But
we're talking about people that have bombs and machine guns and grenades and things like that, and yet nobody talks about that.
Well, let me ask you this.